Welcome back to WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. We're all getting you ready for the big matchup this Saturday night between the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame and your Temple Owls, 8 p.m. on ABC under the lights at Lincoln Financial Field. And now joining us in the studio is the man that will be on the call along with Kirk Herbstreit, and that's Chris Fowler. Chris, thanks for a few minutes. How are you?
I'm great, man. Excited about this. And I love Temple's story. I love being able to showcase teams to an audience that may not know much about them, and the place is going to be juiced up. Plenty of Irish fans, plenty of Owls fans. I know for a lot of people, starting the day with Gameday is something that's like surreal, out-of-body experience, and I might even walk over and check it out because I'm interested in the setting and the scene, but very excited about Saturday night.
I know you only got to see a little bit of the Temple campus today, but you were at the facility this morning. Just what have been your impressions so far about this Temple football program and what they have to offer?
No, very personal. I mean, I like Matt Rhule a lot. I got a chance to talk to Matakevich and Ioannidis and Robbie Anderson and Kyle Friend. So I have a good sense of the veteran leadership of the team. We'll talk to more guys tomorrow. We'll have our coaches meetings. Got to check the virtual reality technology out and how the linebackers and the safeties and the corners and running backs take reps, which is very cool. The building is impressive. I just like the energy around the program. I think Rhule is a really interesting guy. He and I have some things in common. You know, my dad was in the faculty at Penn State, so I spent some time at State College, and he's from New York, which is where I live now. So it was cool to spend time with him, and he's been really generous. And you know, it's flattering for us to have sort of the doors open in a program like this and get to know it. It's
really surreal to have College Game Day in town, the game of the week. These are things that I would never thought would be possible my freshman year, and Temple always talks about it. I'm sure being around the team, you would know that live the moment and also just go out there and play football for 60 minutes, and they want to get that game into the fourth quarter. This is a game where a lot of people are going to be watching. It's a big national stage for Temple. Do you think the moment will be too big for them on Saturday?
I don't think so. I think that judging from what I've heard and what I've seen so far, this is a team that seems pretty well grounded, and I think that comes from Rhule, and it comes from their humble background. I mean, I think that any team that has been through a 2-10, any team that thought they were going to go to a bowl when they scraped back to 6-6 and then was told, nope, sorry, there's no bid for you, and had to regroup after that, I think understands that you never stop working. You never get satisfied with what you're achieving. And I think this group should remember that it's not a conference game. It's not going to define whether or not they meet their goals this season, unless they thought they were going to go 13-0. It's a game where you savor what you've earned to be in the position of the biggest game of the weekend, the only ranked matchup out there, and then go out and play and not fear the golden helmets and not fear the name on the other side of the field and not fear the big spotlight in the stage and just go out and play football. I don't think this group's going to be frozen. I think they're going to be ready to play their best. They've handled Penn State. 27-zip run is something you can draw on when you play another big name team. Notre Dame's playing very good football. Having said that, they're plenty of athletes on that side. They're a team that believes they are in position to get in the playoff if they just run the table, and Temple is an obstacle in their way. They feel like they need to win and probably look good doing so. So the challenge is very real, but I don't feel like Temple is a team that's going to go out there and pee down their leg, as we say. I don't know if you can say that on campus radio.
It's fine here. We're not regulated by the FCC.
Okay.
Although we do follow their guidelines. Just want to make that sure so my GM doesn't get on me.
Okay.
But this is a team of Temple that they have played in those big games. Penn State, like you mentioned, Matt Rhule's first year, they opened up his era in Notre Dame. They had big games. Cincinnati this year. They won last year in Vanderbilt, an SEC environment on opening night. So I think they'll be ready to play. But the question is, how is their offense going to be able to produce in the first quarter? Because Notre Dame has, in the first quarter of games, have outscored their opponents 78-37. Temple only has 30 first quarter points all year. How does Temple get out to a better start?
Yeah, a slow start won't work. And I think a slow start in the microcosm of each series won't work. You can't fail on first down as often as they did against East Carolina really last week and expect to succeed. You got to make positive plays. You're not going to be successful as an offense moving the chains if you're in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 all the time. But Notre Dame has been vulnerable to running the ball. If you look at it, if their defense, and they've given up some big runs. They're not smothering people's running game. For me, it starts with that. I think Thomas is an impressive runner, very quick cutter, bounces the ball outside, can run away from a lot of defenses. I think you got to find ways to get him yards, and I don't think you can necessarily approach it like, okay, we're going to pace ourselves, deliver body blows, and be standing in the fourth quarter. Because I agree with you, Notre Dame has electric playmakers. They strike quickly. You don't want to get behind early and then have to scrap the game plan. I think Penn State was a good test. Penn State scores points in their first 2 drives. Temple's not doing much on offense. You kind of work your way into it, a couple trick plays, get some traction. Defense starts smothering Penn State 3 and outs, and you're back in the game. And I think that Temple's not a team you really want to be close with in the fourth quarter. They've proven that. I think you're right, though. I think you're definitely spot on with the need for a fast start, feed on the crowd energy, and find ways to get PJ settled in early, find some things in the passing game that you can execute, and don't fall behind and use all that crowd energy that's going to be in there.
Chris Fowler joins us right now in the WHIP studios, Philly's #1 college radio station, getting you ready for Temple and Notre Dame that comes your way on Saturday night. And you did College Game Day for 25 years. To come to a school that isn't a national powerhouse, like last week they were at James Madison, it was an incredible atmosphere. What's that like? How much more fun is that than to go to your typical great historic schools of an Alabama or a Michigan?
I got to be careful because it's fun to go to the hotbeds too. When you do a show outside the cathedrals of the sport and the fan bases that are always going to be there, that's great. But I have to tell you that it was more fun for us for all those years to go to a place where the environment is fresh, where you're not taken for granted, where for those students and the fans of this team, it might be one of the biggest day of their lives. It might be the biggest game of their career, quote unquote, and the energy is obviously different when you're at a national monument. I think it's going to be an interesting crowd at Game Day. I think it'll be kind of a melting pot. You'll have plenty of Notre Dame fans there. You just got to make sure the Temple doesn't get dominated in the crowd. And I know there's a bunch of buses headed down there, which is going to be good because even though these city kind of shows tend to have fans from Penn State, maybe even dreaded Villanova will have some fans there in Penn and so on, which makes for a fun environment. But really, the show is here because of Temple, and you want to make sure that it has a strong Temple flavor. I mean, it was a blast. I mean, I do miss certain parts of the show. Not doing it this year, just focusing on the games has been really different for me. But, this might be one of the shows where I kind of like walk over there. It's not far from my hotel and sort of check out the scene from the edge, from the periphery, which is kind of an out-of-body experience. But I kind of want to see what it's going to feel like on Saturday morning, and then folks will have to pace themselves and make sure they bring the energy at night. 25
years you've been doing that, and I wasn't even a thought 25 years ago. So how has the program grown, and now with Reese Davis who's doing it? Just what have you seen the progress of the program from when you first started it up until now?
Well, there wasn't anything to talk about back in 1990 when I started. It was a half-hour show, led into some lightly watched games, which kicked off at noon from the studio, and they were thinking about canceling the show. So it's hard for me to even express the amount of pride and satisfaction of building something from the ground up with this small core of people who've been around that long. And Kirk's been with us 20 years, and Lee and I did it 25 years, and Desmond's become a fixture. And there's a core of the production people that have been around quite a while at this point too. But we never imagined it. We finally got the show on the road for the first time in '93 to Notre Dame, a 1-versus-2 game, and I think that we knew we were on to something right then. We knew that being on a campus was going to lend a dimension to the show, and then it began to really gain momentum, I think, in the mid to late 90s and sort of blew up, and I think schools began to understand the value of having a show like that showcase their program. Because I think that when you look at the crowds that have shown up over the years, I'm not really into trying to count the crowd or draw the biggest crowd, because I think that sometimes that misses the point. But we have had 20, 22, 23,000 people at the show before. And what that's about is not looking at the back of our heads, but showcasing what their program's about, what the game day atmosphere is like at their campus or in their city in this case. And I think that's always what it's been about. It's about not the back of our heads, but coming together to show people what it's about. And I think there is a real opportunity for Temple. I mean, I still think, and I always thought this when I did the show, to be honest with you, the game is the thing. I mean, the show, us being there, I never liked that sort of like rock star label. We're there because the game is big, and it's about the players and the coaches, and that's what I feel about here. You know, you can have a pregame show, but really what matters is what the team does with the big stage. And you got to be careful with the big stage too.
Especially here in Philadelphia.
You can have your pants pulled down on the big stage, and all that means is more people saw it than would have otherwise seen it. I was at Rutgers last week for their showcase game against Ohio State. You know, and Rutgers. I'm not comparing them to Temple because I think the Owls are a lot better football team. And I'm not sure that Notre Dame is quite at the level of Ohio State, but that was going to be a tall order for the Scarlet Knights, and they got devastated. And in that case, I'm not sure the big stage works in your favor, man. It was 49-0. We're groping for something to talk about. I don't think that's going to happen in a million years on Saturday night, but it matters what happens on the field. That's what it's about. Is Temple football stepping up and delivering and playing like they can against a name opponent.
It's funny because the Philadelphia fans here, they boo a lot. They'll tell you when they're good. They'll tell you when they're bad. And you go to those sites, and everyone's waiting for Lee Corso to put on either a leprechaun this Saturday or to dress up as a leprechaun or put on Stella the Owlhead. Where was the city that you guys were most booed when Corso put on the opposing team's mascot?
Oh, man, I'd have to say at LSU, they didn't enjoy it when he put the big elephant head on of Alabama and waved the trunk around. That was the game day where a Titleist golf ball got thrown at the set from about 50 yards out and like ricocheted off. And yeah, they take that seriously. So ever since then, we've had a net behind us. But I think that place, Michigan State and Michigan, was pretty gnarly. Well, we had a mosh pit behind us. They knocked the fence down, and it's now what you see when you watch modern day game day. It's a totally different operation. It's kind of like a well-oiled machine, but it used to be sort of quaint, and we didn't really know what we were doing. We would set up in a field somewhere, and people would gather around and would sometimes get out of control. Now you'll see there's plenty of security there, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, my gut would say that Corso doesn't stray far from the leprechaun, but maybe he'll just get inspired and put the owl head on. I don't know.
The AD told me, Dr. Pat Kraft, that was the first thing they did. They made sure they had a Stella the Owl head for him.
Really?
Yep, that's what he told us on our TV show.
That doesn't
Tuesday.
Necessarily.
No, it doesn't mean they're going to pick it. No,
tip the pick, but it does. It is interesting
have
that
to have
they
it on
asked.
file.
At least he asked.
Yeah.
If you don't ask, that's not a good sign.
So you get to go to these games every week, and you've been covering the national stage of college football for so long. Matt Rhule is a hot coaching commodity. How is he perceived nationally and the job he's doing this year?
I think it's a new sensation. I honestly don't think that Matt had a very strong national profile before this year. I think people knew the name, but obviously when you beat Penn State, you beat your alma mater in the opening game in the fashion that they did, and you get off to this kind of start, awareness and recognition build exponentially within weeks and months. And all of a sudden now, people may not have a face to go with the name, but they know the name of Matt Rhule, and they recognize that he's a young coach on the rise, of which there are a few in the American Conference. I think if you look around, and Justin Fuente is seen that way, and Tom Herman has taken over at Houston, coming from Ohio State with that pedigree, and Chad Morris at SMU hasn't had success yet, but obviously was seen as an offensive guru. This is a conference stocked with guys who have gotten head coaching opportunities and are seen as rising stars. I think Matt's method is different than some of those guys. He's not seen purely as an offensive guru, an offensive system guy. He's coaching a brand of football that in some ways is a throwback that runs counter to the trends, which is interesting, I think. But the more that you are around him and the more that you hear his players talk and you watch tape and how they play, the more impressed you are with him. Here's a guy that clearly has the touch as a recruiter. Players clearly enjoy playing for. I think has a knack for hiring assistants and and I think has a pretty good knack for pushing the right psychological buttons. That some of that's tested. It was tested last week. It's tested this week, and going forward, it will be as well because it's a head coach is in a little bit different position, you know. But I just hearing that what it was like for these veterans. I mean, this was not a guy who came in and was hugging people's neck, patting them on the back, and saying, "Listen, guys, I know you've had a tough go. Keep your head up. We're gonna." No. It was kick them in the ass, and it was grind them and demand a lot of them. And clearly, that was the right thing to do with the group of veterans because he's reached a bunch of guys who are hungry for success and who've grabbed it now in their last year of college ball. And that's what's been impressive to me is, you know, he's been really tough on these guys to a man. They told me how physical and how tough and in your face this staff is, demanding accountability, demanding that you improve individually and as a unit. And I'm impressed by that. I mean, the results show, but you can see it's not a fluke.
I've been at those 5 a.m. practices in December, and the players, you could tell when it's a mat day. They don't like the mat drill whatsoever. Don't even ask him about it in your pregame prep. But Matt develops players, and he gets the best. The guys that are 2-star recruits, 3-star recruits, maybe even a star, guys that aren't really nationally recruited and people look at, he gets the best out of them, and it just shows proof by the guys that are in the NFL right now. And one of those guys that he developed was Tyler Medikevich, who to me is the best kept secret in college football, has over 400 tackles in his career, and he's on pace to be 1 out of 7 players in the history of college football to get over 100 tackles freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. He's going to be an NFL player, in my opinion, and you cover a lot of national guys. He's got to be one of the best kept secrets.
Yeah, I don't know about NFL potential. I think there's potential he can move back inside as a linebacker in the NFL. That's not really not my department, but as a college linebacker, he's exactly what you want. In Phil Snow's defense, that guy at that position, the weak side linebacker, has to be the best player in the defense, and he is. And I think that, you know, the knack for the ball, the tough tackling, he's a personable guy. You got to talk to him, and obviously a guy that's been a student of the game and been hungry to improve his own game and be a leader. And you know, the production speaks for itself. I mean, you're exactly right. I think he might be the only guy in FBS this year to lead his team in tackles every single game, which is impressive. The 4 picks, the sacks, he's around the ball, creates fumbles, recovers them, bats down passes. I think there's a great chance that if Temple continues on this path, and he does, that all that recognition will come at the end of the year. That the awards, the trophies, whether or not he wins them, he'll certainly be in consideration for all that stuff, and that would be terrific if he could, you know, have all his hard work pay off, but also go there and represent Temple and be symbolic of the group effort on defense because you know they deserve it and he deserves it.
Last one with Chris Fowler, who joins us right now. He'll do the game with Kirk Herbstreit, 8 p.m. on ABC Saturday night. So the turnover battle is big in this one, and we talked about Temple getting off to a quick start. If the Owls want to give their fans the best Halloween present ever, what else do they have to do to take down Notre Dame? I know it's a tough task.
Red zone, you know, be efficient when you get in there, you know, trying to kick field goals and score touchdowns. And on defense, they've done a great job in preventing red zone touchdowns too. So if you think about that, you know, the difference between 4 points and 7 points, 3 points and 7 points, you know, 4 points in those possessions is enormous. And I think that's what decides so many games. I mean, I think you got to limit Notre Dame's big plays, make them earn it. They've got a lot of speed, and I think you're running into a team that's really peaking. Comes off a great game against USC, sees the playoff in front of them. You'll get Notre Dame's best shot. You can't count on them handing it to you. So it's just, you know, handling the mini adversity in the game, which is like a microcosm of what they've all been through in their careers, because there'll be bad things happen. You got to manage that. Just, you know, I think just play Temple football, do what they've done, which is play sound, don't beat yourself, be good in the red zone, and prevent big plays. And I can't wait to see if that blueprint works. I know how good Notre Dame is, and I'm sort of eager to see, you know, Temple in this situation.
Well, we'll see you Saturday night at Lincoln Financial Field, and you know, you have a little bit bigger audience than we will on the radio here for the student station.
I don't say that.
But we do appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, man. Good luck to you.